Welcome to the President's Forum podcast. This month, we're exploring artificial intelligence in higher education. And our guest today is David Schejbal, president of Excelsior University. Now, David and Excelsior are frontline innovators in higher education. They've been the leader in time and place flexibility innovation since the 90s. In this interview, David shared some great insights with us on the next chapter of innovation in higher education. That's the AI frontier. Let's get right to this conversation. David, welcome into the President's Forum podcast. We want to talk AI with you today. Does that work?
It does. Thanks. Thanks for having me, Wes.
You got it. Let's start broadly on this topic. You probably see so many applications for AI. As a university president, as you are looking at artificial intelligence, how are you viewing it? What's the big picture on this? Is it an opportunity? Is it a threat? Is it both? Tell us about the tool.
Well, I think the operative term that you just used is it's a tool. And it is just another opportunity and a challenge for faculty and for institutions to integrate new technologies into the teaching and learning process. And so AI certainly has a lot of limitations. It's also in its very nascent stage at the moment. Most people don't know the full value or power of it yet, and the rate of change is very fast, and the rate of change is much faster than the rate of reasonable assimilation by faculty and by institutions, and so you get a lot of friction in the process. So I think like any technology, it's going to take faculty a while to adapt to it. Some will be early adopters and they're going to do interesting things. And most are going to wait a little while until it feels safe to use it.
Okay, so I like that you mentioned, some faculty will react in one way, some in another. I want to know from an administrator's position, from looking at the systems, how do administrators see this differently than faculty? Is there a difference? Is there a split on this between those two groups of higher ed leaders?
Yeah, well, I think faculty will tend to personalize it very quickly to their individual courses and to the way they teach, to their students, et cetera. Whereas at the administrative level, we have to look at the systemic approach, the holistic approach, the power of AI, not just in the classroom, but also at the institutional level, and the extent to which we can leverage it to competitive advantage, to maybe reducing costs, if at all possible, or to improving our learning outcomes, those kinds of things that probably individual faculty aren't necessarily thinking about.
Right. When you, okay, let's talk about systems. When you're looking at systems and how AI can be helpful to you in systems to either drive down costs, hopefully drive down costs, or increase learning outcomes, improve learning outcomes. How do you see AI as an innovative institution? And I want to remind our listeners, Excelsior has been on the front end of innovation in a lot of ways and an early adopter in the past. So this is not coming from kind of an incumbent, old, stodgy institution that's been doing things the same way, for a century. This is coming from an innovator. How do you see it as an innovator? Where do you want to accentuate it in your institution?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's really important that we help our students understand the power and the use of AI in their work, because our students are adults, they're typically working, and many of them have the same questions that you and I have about AI. How do I leverage it for my own personal advantage? How do I leverage it for the advantage of my organization, et cetera, et cetera? I chair the board of the U.S. Army War College, and I was at the War College in the fall, or in the spring, I should say, and we were talking about AI. And the best description I heard was from one of the senior officers who said, AI is sort of like an earnest corporal. He really wants to please his commanding officer, and he's a smart guy, so he's gonna know a lot of the answers. But when he doesn't know the answers, he's just gonna make it up. And so I think that's exactly what AI does right now. And so one of the challenges, I think, from both a pedagogical perspective and from a use perspective, is to see it as a tool, but not necessarily an accurate one.
Right.
And so you have to double check the information that you get. You take what you see with a grain of salt, and if the answer to a question that you're asking or the use that you're putting it to is important, then you need to verify.
Right.
Right? You need to double check, and you're not going to insult anybody by double checking. So you might as well really put it through its paces.
I am a regular and avid user of artificial intelligence. I use it all the time now in my job. I'm curious. Have you used? Do you use? And if so, give us a little bit of your personal experience with artificial intelligence.
So I've certainly used it, and I do use it, especially in kind of sophisticated searches, that kind of thing. Where I do not use it is in my own writing, in part because I am a writing snob and I prefer my own writing to what a computer can generate. And so, plus, when I write something, especially for publication, I want to be able to stand behind it. And so I
Right.
want it to be my work as opposed to the work of a machine. Um, but in terms of research power, it certainly can be valuable. But again, you got to double check it, and you got to make sure your sources are accurate and all of that kind of stuff. So that's how we use it. But
Right.
you know, I've also used it for financial analyses. We've used it for understanding some of our campus opportunities in terms of the physical plant. So there's various ways you can use it, obviously.
I use it to write. I actually do use it to write. And the way that I use it, though, what I've found is it changes the way I write. And, the writing comes so quickly that I do it at chunks now at a time where I'll use it for, okay, I really want to express this idea and I want to, look at it. And then to your point, I never just say, oh yeah, now I'm done. It's always like, that's very drafty. And then from there, I can go back and say, oh, okay, I don't like that. I don't like how this turns out. And then now for some writing, like for instance, to summarize this interview, I can put the transcript in and kick it out in AI in 2 seconds, and it'll give me the synopsis that I can almost publish without doing much editing. The 200-word synopsis of it, and to me that's a different thing than scholarly writing or something like that, a summary. But to I guess my point is, I found that if you do use it, you start to think about crafting and authorship in a slightly different way. I'm wondering what your opinion is on how AI will change the way that students learn and interact with course material. How do you think that'll impact the way higher education interacts in an institution with a student?
Yeah, well, so I think faculty concerns immediately to go to cheating, right? Students are going to use this and they're just going to cheat even more than they already do.
Right.
Um, uh, I think what's going to happen with well-designed classes is that we're going to have to take really seriously what we've been talking about now for 20 years, which is true backward design, really focusing on using the technology, textbooks, search engines, whatever it is, to let students learn the bulk of the curriculum and leverage the in-person experiences, whether they're in-person in synchronous modalities or whether they're really in a classroom. But use those in-person experiences to drive the human interaction pieces of the learning. So the one thing that AI will never replace, just like Zoom can't replace, is human interaction. Just won't happen.
Right.
We talk about this all the time here at work because we have a hybrid working environment, and some staff, of course, love to work from home. And what's lost is really that the quality of the human interaction. You can get a lot of work done, it can be very transactional, but the quality of that interaction suffers when it's mediated by a computer screen. And I think the same thing happens in the classroom. So there is tremendous value and efficiency in having online instruction, but nothing replaces the actual interaction between the students among themselves and between the students and the instructor. And so figuring out better ways to create that connectivity, the human connectivity, is going to be important. And the more tools we have, the more difficult it gets to create that human connectivity. And it requires faculty to be innovative and thoughtful.
So I know I've heard this before that faculty, there's genuine concern about, cheating,
Yeah,
academic integrity issues. And I totally understand that. And I think that the way that we think about writing right now may have to evolve, right? Like the calculator was once absolutely cheating if you use it to calculate, mathematical equations, and now maybe not so much. It's part of the process of getting to an end result. Writing may turn into that, but I've also heard this other perspective, and I want to ask you about this. And I don't know what the answer is to this. It's just one of those frontiers that's out there that is not yet too explored. Can faculty use AI to cheat? Like,
sure.
are there ways that faculty would be using AI and it would be, you know, it would be inappropriate? Can AI grade papers? Can you use AI? I mean, clearly all of the academic integrity issues and the, writing for publication, et cetera, there's some issues there, but I just love your perspective on, are there things that are out of bounds for faculty to use AI for?
So it's a really great question. I and I think the answer to it evolves with the technology. So, um, uh, is it cheating for faculty to use AI to help them grade? Probably not. No more cheating than what you just described in having AI transcribe this conversation that you and I are having, or
Right.
having AI transcribe meeting minutes rather than having an administrative assistant have to sit there and do that painful process, right? So I think where 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 there are real lines is in ethical considerations of the use of AI. So if you're using AI to manipulate others, to skew information so that you get what you want at the other person's expense, um, those things I think are really troubling. And so, could faculty use AI to manipulate students to get better student evaluations? Yeah, sure they could. That would be an inappropriate use of AI, in
Right.
my opinion.
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting how many applications and from how many perspectives you can see this. And to your point, I really do think that this will have to evolve and we'll have to learn. And I think to one of your earliest points in this conversation, it's incredible how rapidly AI is changing and improving. I don't know if you've noticed in your use of AI, but since January of this year to now, November of this year, it's absolutely incredible how much better AI has been and the tools are today. And there are other areas where I'm still like, If I don't know if you've ever tried to use AI to generate an image,
To
still
generate.
way behind.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't hear you. Generate
to
what?
generate an image. Like if you're saying, hey, can you create an image for me that does this and this and has this in it? It is still way behind, right? The AI for writing and text is much better, but even the improvements there are rapid. So we're going to see this roll out, in the next. Well, every year it's going to be so much better than it was the year before, which solves a lot of concerns, but also creates more concerns. So I'm interested to know, how do you think from an institutional perspective you keep up with that change, that rapid innovation? How do you do that?
Well, yeah. So I think, as with a lot of change, there's some that you need to keep up with, and there's a lot that you don't. And so I think that using good judgment about which of it is of value to the institution and which of it is a lot of friction and noise that you don't have to pay a lot of attention to. And that's going to get challenging. The ethical questions, I think, are going to be really important for institutions to address and to help their students understand. And the manipulation of information is really worrisome to me, especially from a pedagogical perspective and from a history of knowledge perspective, right? So students nowadays almost never pick up an actual book to read. And so you can start to imagine how classical texts start to be manipulated by ideologues who want people to think the way they think, as opposed to supporting people to develop their own thinking processes. And so these are sort of big picture issues, social issues that really worry me about the values of libraries, for example. And it's much cheaper to have an electronic library than to maintain a physical one. But it's the maintaining of the physical one that guarantees that the electronic stuff is true to form. And so these are big issues that I think we're going to have to wrestle with over time, and that's just one example.
Right. Right. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the world of, deep fakes and AI, supremacy, that's going to be a real issue. I could see how that could become an issue. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, David. We look forward to continuing these types of conversations at the President's Forum and your leadership with regard to innovative institutions and what the next step looks like. So let's make a deal that we have a continuation of this conversation sometime in the next 6 months and see how things are going then.
I'll look forward to it. Thank you.